family. I'm so thankful that you clicked on this video today. Whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, I'm so thankful that you clicked this video because I want to talk to you about something exciting, and that's 3 ways to get closer to God. 3 ways to get closer to God. I've heard the phrase a lot in church that says, it's not about religion, it's about a relationship. And that's true. The core of Christianity is not about the services and the ceremonies and the rules and the regulations. It's about a relationship with God. And you might be asking yourself, well, how do I have a relationship with someone I can't see and touch? And you may have even been a Christian for a long time and still struggle with this question. Well, good news today. That's what we're talking about. And so let's get into it. Number 1, acknowledge that He is there. Now, before I get into this, I want to tell you that sometimes we will make having a relationship with God overcomplicated and we'll stress ourselves out, and then we'll just not want to have a relationship with God because it's so stressful on us. That's not how it's supposed to be. God created you in His image and with natural ways to create relationships with people. And those natural ways that He gave you are the same things He wants you to use in creating a relationship with Him. If you remember, when Adam was walking in the garden, God came down and walked with him. You know, what was He showing Adam? He was showing him that it's important to be in someone's presence to create a relationship with them. And a lot of times in church we say, you need to get into God's presence. And that may be a little confusing. Maybe you're saying, I don't know what that means. What does it mean to get into God's presence? How do I do that? I had a friend ask me that one time, and then they said this. Well, am I not already in God's presence all the time? Isn't His presence everywhere? And that's right. His presence is everywhere. But you can be everywhere that I am, but if I don't acknowledge you, then I've never actually been in your presence. We've just been in the same room at the same time. You can be everywhere that I am, but if I don't acknowledge it, then we haven't made a connection. And being in someone's presence is all about making a connection. For example, I go to Walmart with lots of people, but I don't make connections with all of them. We're all in the same place at the same time, but we're not making that connection. And so I want to encourage you to make that connection with God. Begin to acknowledge His place in your life. But not just in your life, in your everyday situations. Because you're probably thinking, well, how in the world do I do this practically? Well, the one way I like to do it is I've read the scripture where Jesus speaks to His disciples and He says, I am with you always, even to the ends of the earth. Well, He is with me, even right now. He's right beside me. He's right with me. And I like to begin to think about that. I'm acknowledging that He is with me. He is here. And how often do I go through my days and not even acknowledge that He is here? Acknowledge that He has a place in my life and in my day. When I'm frustrated or things are going on in my life, I'll say, God, I'm frustrated. Can you help me with this? Even if it's just a work project and I can't get something to work, I'll say, God, can you help me with this? I need your help. And He's there. Acknowledge that He is there. Acknowledge His presence and His place in your life. That's the first way to begin a relationship with Him. Number 2, communication is key. If you go to any marriage conference or any place that's trying to teach you how to build relationships, they will tell you communication is key. Can you imagine having a relationship and never communicating with the other person? No, that would be impossible to create a relationship like that. And it's the same way with God. And so that's why communicating with Him is very important. And the number 1 way we communicate is through talking, speaking. So talking to God is so important. Praying is so important. It's important that we express to God how we feel about Him. We express to Him the things about our day. Talk to Him. Nothing can replace that. However, I don't want us to forget that listening is also a very important part of communicating. It's never fun when you just have a friend who just talks and talks and talks and talks and you just listen the whole time. It's important that there is back and forth talking and listening. So we need to learn to listen to God as well as talk to Him. You may say, well, God still talks to people? Yes, He definitely still talks to people. He definitely still talks to His children and to His people, and we need to learn to listen to His voice. You may think, well, is it an audible voice? It can be, but a lot of times it happens like this. Let me use this story to explain it. There was a pastor and his name was Mark, and he had a friend, and we'll just call him Sam. And Mark called Sam, and Sam said that, I got to tell you this story. This amazing thing happened today. He said, I was riding in the car, and all of a sudden my arm started hurting, and I thought, what's wrong with my arm? It hurts so bad. He said, I just heard God say to me, call Bob. So he called Bob. Bob's wife picked up and said, Bob has just fallen down the stairs and broken his arm. I'm so glad you called. Can you come and help? And Sam did that. He went over and helped. Well, Mark said, Sam, how did you know that was the voice of God? What did it sound like? And Sam said this. He said, close your eyes and think, call Bob. And so Mark did that, and he goes, that's exactly what it sounded like. And see, sometimes we think that we're going to feel the heavens open up and God's going to speak to us. But most of the time, it's just we hear a voice in our head that's not our own voice, not our own thought. We just hear that voice, and it's not something we would think of, but it's the voice of God. And the more you hear it, and the more you ask God to speak to you, the more you will hear His voice. And it'll be just like that. In the mix of all those thoughts of fear and worry and anxiety that tend to come into our head, you'll just hear a voice that says, peace, be still. I'm with you. I love you. Don't worry. You'll hear a voice like that. You know it's not your own voice because your voice is worried. You are frantic in that moment. But God will speak that peace to you. Learn to hear His voice because He's speaking. We just need to be attentive to it. Also, another way to hear God and to communicate with God is through His Word. His Word is almost like a Facebook timeline. You scroll through it and you see the things He loves, you see the things He hates, you see the things that He has done. You can scroll all the way down and see all about Him. And it's so fun to do that. That's how we learn about people a lot of times, is scrolling through their Facebook and learning about when they graduated and what they did. And so that's another way to learn about God, is to read His Word, read what He did and what He thinks about you and what He does love and what He does hate, those types of things. But I've found that if I go through somebody's Facebook with them right beside me, they can tell me way more than they're just looking through their Facebook can tell me. And so that's the same way with God. When I go to sit down and read my Bible, I take a notebook with me because I'm expecting God to speak. And when He does, I want to write it down. I'm expecting Him to reveal something to me in a way I've never seen it before. And I ask Him, I say, God, show me something in your Word today. Show me something that will speak to me about my life. Make it relevant to my life today. Not just reading about history. I want to know what this means to me. And God will speak to you as you read His Word. And take a notebook and write it down. Because this kind of communication is important. When God says something to you, it's important. Write it down and remember it. But always remember, keep these two things. I know you're thinking, you always talk to us about prayer and reading your Bible, but really nothing can replace those. It's almost like telling you when you and your husband or your wife are in a fight and you're saying, well, what should we do? How should we make our relationship better? And I say, well, communication is the best thing, but I'll just kind of skip it because that's what everybody says. No, communication is always the best thing in that situation, and communication is the best thing when building a relationship with God. Number 3, love His people. You might be thinking, what in the world are you talking about? Love God's people, love one another. That will create a closer relationship with God. Yes, it definitely will. If you have kids, you know what it's like when someone loves your child. When someone loves your child as if it is their own child, and they lavish them and they just treat them so great. It's as if they're treating you that great. And God feels the same way when we love on one another and we treat one another as if each other is our own children, our own family, that we just love one another with that type of intensity. It's when we recognize and put value on what God created and on the people that He created. He gave us 2 commands. One is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And number 2 is love one another as you love yourself. So it's important not only that we recognize and value what He's created, but we value what He's commanded us to do. We value His word. How much we look like Him when we follow His word and when we love one another. And I also think about a lot of times if you've ever had a child who admires you or loves you and they want to be just like you. They want to follow you around. They want to dress like you. They want to talk like you. They want to go to your job and be just like you. How good that makes you feel. How awesome that makes you feel. And think about what it does to God when we say, God, you love people, so I want to love people like you. I want to be like you. It strengthens your relationship. Just like it strengthens your relationship with that child when they want to be like you. So let's look like Jesus. Let's look like God. Let's strive to look like Him and love His people. Love His creation. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I hope this has been an encouragement to you. I hope that you will grow in your relationship with God. There's nothing greater that we could do than strive to be closer and closer to God every day. It's an exciting journey, and I hope that you are on it. I hope that you join me in the next video. If you have any ideas or anything that you would like me to put in a video, let me know. Put it in the comments. Message me any kind of way that you can get it to me. I would love to do new videos that would speak to you and help you any way that I can. I hope you have a wonderful week. I'll see you next week.